Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Idiot Quilter with me, Stephen. And this is episode 110, and it's April the 13th, 2021. So let's get right into everything. Behind me you see not a quilt, but a table runner. I made this table runner from basically, well, they weren't quite scraps, but I have a lot of butterfly, that's the word I want, butterfly fabric. You know that I kind of collect it. And I thought, well, you know, it's sitting in my drawer. I need a table runner, a springy like table runner. Although at first glance at this, you probably don't think spring, but I do because I think of butterflies. And I saw this design on Jordan Fabrics YouTube channel. Donna Jordan developed this particular pattern, and any patterns that she writes, she offers free on their website, and they're just a PDF download. And I always find her instructions to be very, very clear. I've done a lot of Donna Jordan patterns in the past, and this is one of them, as I said. So anyways, I did quilt this, and I did free motion quilting. Just simple back and forth little wavy type lines, whatever you want to call it, kind of like a meandering effect. And that turned out actually pretty good on this. I'm trying to develop my skills in free motion quilting with each project that I do. So I'm very pleased with the way this has turned out, and it sits on my dining room table right now. And I'm getting to that point where I'm making table runners as seasonal switch out decor. Meaning, you know, I've got one now for the fall, I've got one for the winter, I have a Christmas one, and now I have this spring one. So I'm going to have to think about one for the summer. Maybe something on a Canadian theme, because I do have some Canadian fabrics laying around as well. At one point I was sort of collecting them, and that might be kind of nice because, you know, July is the month of Canada Day, July the 1st, and that's pretty much, well, not really the beginning of our summer, but what a lot of us do consider as the beginning of our 2 months of summer kind of a thing here. But anyways, yeah, I never thought I'd become one of those kind of people that switches out decor according to the seasons, but I guess that's what quilting has brought me to. I do have another one in the other room, not a table runner, but another project which I'm almost finished, and that's my Carpenters wheel quilt, which I have shown you at various stages of its development. Well, yesterday I got it quilted, so it's all layered, it's all quilted, and now after I'm finished recording this, I'm going to make the binding for it, and I'm going to get that done. I'm also going to do something I don't usually do with the quilt after I finished it, and that is I'm going to actually wash it. Now, there's a lot of white in that quilt, as you know, if you think back to when I showed it to you. However, I'm pretty confident that the fabrics are not going to bleed, but I will throw in a couple of color catchers as well. The reason I want to wash this one is because there is a lot of fairly dense quilting on it. I did it all using a walking foot. Wasn't my plan. My plan was to do some more free motion quilting on it, but it just, when I was designing it, the quilting for it, it just sort of lent itself more to straight lines for some reason. So I went with my gut and did that. And actually, the way I designed it this time, which was a little different method than I've used before, is once I had the quilt all layered and laid out on my tables that I set up for doing this process, I took a big sheet of heavy plastic that I bought at Yisk store and put it on top, and with some dry erasable markers, I drew out my design. Now, this is not an original idea to me. I've seen many different YouTube channels that show you how to do this. I think Kim Jamison Hurst did one on the Chatterbox quilts as well. And you know, it's not a bad method. It actually makes you think about your plan for quilting. And it helped me out quite a bit this time. You know, so I didn't have a lot of stops and starts on this quilt. So I did that. It's looking pretty good. I will show it next week on the next episode of the Idiot Quilter for you, just to see it. And another thing that I did that was different this time. Usually I use spray basting to put my layers together. I like using the spray basting. I don't have any issues with it whatsoever. I know some people think, you know, it sprays all over your house if you spray it indoors. It's got fumes. I don't find I have any of those problems with it. But I still get tucks, because no matter how much spray basting you put on the quilt, it's still going to pucker in some spots. And I hate that. So I thought I would do a combination this time. I used spray basting and I used pins. Now, I have never pinned the layers of a quilt before in preparation for quilting. I know that a lot of people do that. A lot of people swear by that. I just don't like pinning. At least I didn't think I did. But I decided to give it a go on this one. And you want to know something? I don't know if it was because I was doing walking foot quilting on this or it was because of the pins. I don't have any tucks. It was worth the time it took me to do the pinning. And I think on future quilts I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to still use my spray based between my layers, but I am going to pin it as well. Just gives me that extra level of security and tightness to avoid, I think, tucks. At least it worked on this quilt. So as I said, I'm almost finished it. I've got to make the binding, I've got to get it on, and then I'm going to wash it, and then I will show it to you on next week's Idiot Quilter episode. Okay, so what's happening and what's new? Well, we did Craft and Chat this past Wednesday. That happens the first Wednesday of every month at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time until about 4 p.m. in the afternoon. It's a drop-in. I'm starting to sound like a broken record because I have said this many times before. You can come along, drop in, stay as long as you want, whatever. It's just a fun atmosphere to get some things done or caught up on some of the projects in anything that has to do with anything. It doesn't matter what kind of craft you're into. If you're not into quilting but you're into paper crafting, it's fine. You're welcome for this as well. It's for everyone. So we have our regulars who have been with me since I started it. We enjoy each other's company, we have a good time, and we are more than happy to welcome any other new people who would like to join up with us. So that'll be the first Wednesday in May, will be the next one. I believe that's May the 5th. Okay, so I had some plans, and I'll do this down the road, of actually interviewing Walter about his little sewing journey. But it didn't work out in time for this YouTube video. I might even save something like that more or less for our So Chatty episodes down the road. I don't know. But just to let you know what he's been working on, he's been going like mad lately. His big project right now is making a coat. He's doing this as a virtual online class with a local guy that's a friend of ours, but is also an excellent tailor. I guess that's what you'd call him. I was going to say seamstress, but I don't know. I guess tailor is the proper term now, and tailors can include both sexes. So, you know, anyways, he's really good at it. And Walter has been taking classes with him since COVID got started. And so this is the big project, a coat. I think it is a challenging project, but Walter seems to like those kind of things, and so far it's looking great. He's had his frustrations with it. I think I've mentioned he's a perfectionist, so you know, if something's not straight, he rips it out until it is straight. And anyways, it's going to be a really nice project. He also finished up a shirt, and he said I could have it, yay, because it's in blue, my color. It's a gorgeous shirt. I'm sure we'll show it to you on Stephen and Walter Live probably this coming week, as long as our technology works. And if you don't know what I mean by that, check out Stephen and Walter from this past week and you'll know what I mean. Anyways, so my summer wardrobe is coming along quite nicely with these shirts that Walter's been making. I can't wait until the weather gets a little warmer and I can start wearing them. So that's what he's been up to. So this brings us to this week's demo, and I want to show you how to use this little device, this little piece of metal, this triangular metal piece. This is called the Prairie point tool. I did show it last week on the episode, but this week I'm going to demo how you use it, and it works great for prairie points, as the title suggests, but what I'm going to show you is how I use it to make really accurate Dresden points. And so I'm going to insert that video in here right now. Okay, so as you know from some past episodes, I want to make this Dresden bloom quilt, which, as the name suggests, is made up of Dresdens. And Dresdens, of course, are what these look like. So there's a couple of tools you really need to make these fast and efficiently. One of them is a Dresden ruler, which allows you to cut the basic shape. The other is this new toy that I just bought, and it's called a Prairie pointer. And it's a template that's made of metal. And although this was designed for making perfect prairie points, it can also be used to make a Dresden. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's move this out of the way for a moment, and I'm going to grab 2 strips of fabric that I have already sewn together. These are 2.5-inch strips, and of course you can make Dresdens almost in any size you want. And I've sewn them together and pressed them open. Let's get it into the picture here. And now I'm going to take my Dresden ruler, and for this particular pattern I need an 8-inch Dresden, and this ruler just happens to be 8 inches long. So all I'm going to do is center the ruler, and I'm just going to cut this piece out. And for safety's sake, I'm going to turn this around so I don't cut myself, and realign the ruler on top of this. And cut this side. Okay, there we go. I've got my basic shape. Now, what I need to do next is fold, turn it over, and got a little piece here that I don't need. I'll just take that off. And usually when you make a Dresden, you fold this in half, right sides together again. Easy to do because you've already got a stitch, in this case, down the side. And I mean, you could make this out of a solid piece of fabric as well, but I'm following the instructions that came with the pattern. I'm just going to give that a light press. And then I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine, and they say to stitch 1/4 inch across the top of this. So I'll do that and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've sewn across the top 1/4 inch, and then you just clip this one edge right here. Okay, so now I need to make the point. Now to do that, I'm going to turn this inside out, and just like anything, you may have to poke out the corner. Where's my pokey tool? To get a nice sharp point on that. Okay, and now you would just take it and line up the seams and fold it down the middle. But with this new tool, where did I put it? Right here. All I need to do is push this up inside, just like that. And you see how nice and pointy and straight I'm getting my points. And there's a line down the center of this that you line up with your seam on these 2 pieces, if you have a seam. If not, it would be just down the center. And then you take it to your iron, leave your little template right in there, and press it. And that's why this little template is made out, made out of metal. Okay, you're probably laughing at me. That's hot. Don't pick it up like that. It's hot. And there you go. Your perfect Dresden. So this one I made the standard way, just by folding it over and creasing it myself. And this way, I did it with the little ruler. And it came out pretty good. And that's what the Prairie tool will do for you. The Prairie Point tool. Just remember, this thing gets hot. And if you're interested in picking up one of those tools, you can go on Amazon. That's where I got it. I think it came out to about 30 bucks Canadian for it, but I think it's a really handy tool to have. So that takes us to the subscribers quilt of the week, and this one is by, and now I'm not sure if it's Helene or Helena or Helen. Sorry, I'm getting your name wrong. I would say it's probably Helene Berkey, and she sent me some pictures of some of her creations, so take a look. This week's subscribers quilt is by Helene Berkey. Hope I'm saying your name right, Helene. And she says, my favorite type of quilts are scrap quilts. These two were made from a block that was posted on Facebook about 2 years ago by Lorraine Mooney called Spin Me Around. The yellow and green quilt was sewn with consistent strip placement in the block. The second quilt, I used random strips as they came up. I used Quilt As You Go to quilt both quilts. As you know, anyone who quilts always has a lot of leftover scraps, and I think this is a great and relaxing way to use it. I have made 4 quilts using this method, but somehow my scraps seem to multiply. Laugh out loud. I know exactly what you mean by that. Watch all your videos and really enjoy them. I look forward to your new series. I think it will be helpful to many of us that don't have a dealer as good as and ethical as Shirley. Take care, Helene. Well, Helene, these quilts are absolutely beautiful, and I love doing this kind of quilting for a couple of reasons. One, it's almost mindless. It's just when you want to sew and you don't want to have to think about complicated patterns, it's easy to put together. And as you've already mentioned, it does use up your scraps in your stash. So thank you for sending those. They're both very beautiful, and I look forward to seeing some more of your creations in the future. So if you'd like to send me some pictures of your textile art, please feel free to do so. My email contact address is in the show notes below, and just send me a picture or two of what you're working on or something you're very proud of, and a little blurb about it, and I will feature you here as well. So it's painless. Shoutouts. Okay, so there is a link in the show notes for the latest episode of So Chatty, and on that episode we reviewed the Continental M7 by Janome, which is my principal machine. We also, what else did we do that I have in the show notes here? Okay, yeah, I've got a link to Ultimate Sewing, as I always have. I have links to a free pattern called Making Waves, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. In fact, that pattern, I've already gone over it before with some of the fabrics I had for it, but I just got the rest of the fabrics I need for it, which I'm going to share with you in a few moments. There's a link to this week's YouTube channel of the week, which is Deb Tucker's 180-degree design, and we'll talk about that. I have a link to this week's online store, Quilters Cupboard, and a link to a fabric store online that I just got a whole bunch of fabrics from for that pattern I was just mentioning, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes. So all those links are in the show notes. But let's move on to YouTube channel of the week, and that's Deb Tucker Studio 180 Designs. Now, I am sure you've heard of Deb Tucker because she has a whole line of rulers that are really great, and I know many people, once they've bought one Deb Tucker ruler, go back to buy more. I have a number of them myself, and they are a really good product. But what I really like is the fact that she shows you how to use her products on her YouTube channel, and there is so much more than a one-off you can do with all of these rulers. And she's got a lot of interesting patterns and designs, and she shows you how to use these particular rulers. So in the cost of one of these rulers, you're getting free tutorials through YouTube for them as well. she's a very experienced quilter, obviously, and it's been around for years. And, you know, I think you should really check out her channel. It's an excellent resource. Even if you don't necessarily buy some of her rulers, there are some tips and tricks in there that I think any quilter can use. So there's a link for Deb Tucker's 180 Designs in my show notes. Okay, so that takes us to fabrics that I've bought and patterns. All right, so last week I believe I showed you this particular pattern. It's on my vision wall that I want to make soon. And it is a form of Bargello, and it's called Making Waves. And it's by AGF. So I showed you that, and I showed you some of the fabrics I was going to use. And I'm using Floral Rhapsody by, I believe it's Kaufman. And very pretty fabrics. But this quilt takes a lot of different fabrics. So I needed to buy some others as well. So I did. I saw this line, and when I did, I thought this was going to look absolutely wonderful with the fabrics I already had for this quilt. And this line is called Bliss Oasis. It is by, okay, let me find the selvage. I can't remember. I think it's Robert Cott. No, it's Northcott, my favorite. It's Northcott Studios. So I bought quite a bit of this, more than I need. And I bought these from Away Quilting. And I have a link to their store below, and I will, in future episode, I will be reviewing their online store. But I have ordered from this company before. Their prices are in the ballpark, average, and very efficient in their shipping as well. And a good selection of fabrics on the store. So this is what Oasis Bliss looks like. Now, I am not a fan of pink, but there are shades of pink, like these two, that I do like. So I got those and this. I love this one. And I have to put these down because I can't hold them all at once. I got this, again, the purples. You know how I love purples. But I got it in teal as well. And of course I got it in this sort of bluey, pinky tone as well. I think in that pattern that I showed you, Making Waves, along with the Floral Rhapsody fabrics, I think it's going to look very, very dynamic. And just as an aside here, on this company that I bought all these pretty fabrics from, they threw in a 1/2 meter of a blender as well, which I think is just a little bonus, keeps me coming back. Get free fabric. Who doesn't love free fabric? So those will go in the drawer for this pattern. And you see, I mark on these patterns what fabric I intend to use for them. And you see, if I do that and I set it aside, then I know I've got to do that project. Okay, I won't, and also I won't use that fabric for something else because I forgot that I want to use it for a particular project. Okay, so that's what I got from Runaway Quilts, and that takes us to criticizing one of my quilts. And it's actually not a quilt again this week. It's what I call Scrappy Abstract Wall Hanging. So here's the review. This week's quilt by me is actually more of a wall hanging. It's not really a quilt, although it has elements of quilting in it. This is actually something I made from leftover scraps quite a long time ago, and it hangs in my guest bathroom off my rec room. Now, this is one way of getting rid of some of your excess scraps, and we're going to take a look at this. And I really can't point out any real mistakes in this because you couldn't tell. There isn't any mistakes because this is just how it goes together. And you'll see what I did was I had these scraps and I just cut them up and hacked them up. I also had an old block that looks like I may have done some crazy quilt decorative stitching on it. And I just laid these all down on this background fabric, which was just basic black. No, it wasn't basic black, was it? Yeah, I guess it was. Or it might have been white. I can't tell because I've covered it all up. I think it was probably black. Anyways, I just laid these all over the top of the quilt, and I laid down on top of all the scraps to hold them down. Some of them I used a little bit of glue stick, and with most of them though, I just put a piece of sulky water soluble stabilizer on the top of this and sewed through it. And you can see what I did was I just did kind of like free motion quilting, although, and I guess in a sense it is, there's some pebbles there. I just sewed all over it. That's all I did to hold the pieces down. And if some of them didn't get quite caught up, I left them because it looks 3D then. It adds dimension to this overall piece. Now I had this little sunflower die cut. I must have been experimenting with my die cutting machine one day, and I had cut that out and didn't do anything with it, so I threw that down. I even had a spare machine embroidered freestanding butterfly that was in my stash, and I just glued that down as well. So after I stitched over top of all of these elements, with the exception of the sunflower and the butterfly, I just dissolved the sulky. Now actually, I don't think I used water on this, or did I? This may have been, actually I think I used a type of soluble stabilizer that will disappear when you apply heat to it. Now you have to be careful with that kind of stabilizer because it can stick to the bottom of your iron. So you've got to put like a applique sheet or a piece of parchment paper or something like that on top of it, and then it just essentially what it does is it melts it into the fabric and everything sticks down. There are various ways you can do this kind of thing, but that's what I did. So I think it turned out pretty nice. Now if I look at this, I put on this kind of a binding. It actually, what I did was I used the pillowcase type of binding, you know, where you sew two pieces together, have them inside out, and then pull them through a hole and stitch it up. I didn't really put on a real binding, but I made it big enough that it does look like a sort of a combination border binding. I was kind of pleased with this. It was fun to do. I didn't really have any plan, and that was part of the fun of all of this, just creating it as you go along. And it's a great way to use up some stashes and to create an interesting original piece of art that you can hang anywhere in your house. So, and I've had a lot of compliments on this, and a lot of people have looked at it, and it does definitely start conversation. So I thought I'd show you this little piece this week. Okay, so next week I will critique a full-size quilt. All right, so that takes us to our online fabric stores that I've been looking at, and this one is a local one to me. I've been to this store several times, well, more than several, many times actually, and it's called the Quilters Cupboard, and it's located in a little town north of me, about half an hour north of me, called Uxbridge. It's a quaint store. It's in a house. Basically, but the whole house is the store. Easy to get to, easy to find, and a good selection of fabrics there as well. Now, their style tends to be, every quilt store has its style. Their style tends to be more traditional and vintage fabrics. So if you're into that kind of thing, if you're into reproductions of 1930s fabrics, things like that, you'll love this particular store. Their fabric prices online run around $18.99 a meter, that's Canadian, and up. So they do tend to be a little bit pricier than what I'm used to paying for, but as I said, they carry fabrics that I won't find in some of my other local quilt stores as well. And when I'm saying local quilt stores, I'm talking about online. Okay, because that's what this is mostly about. But yes, they do have a physical store. The staff in the store are fairly friendly. I hesitate on that. When I first walked into that store, I did not get a warm reception. I felt a little bit of a wall of ice. I don't know if that was because, it's a small town, they know the regular customers, I was new, or was it because I was a man? I'm not sure, but money talks. Because I think, first of all, they didn't think I was in the right place, or they thought I had been sent on an errand by my wife. Oh, I hate that when you get that attitude, That's just sexist. But when I started to point out what I wanted and started talking their language, and especially talking the language of money, suddenly I was very much welcomed. And every time I've been back into that store, no problems whatsoever. It is the only quilt store I ever walked in where I got a little bit of that icy attitude. I was used to getting that when I used to do a lot of shopping for scrapbooking supplies. That was not uncommon. In quilting stores, though, I have found those to be much more inviting and open. Now, having said that, I'm drawing back from experiences from 20 years ago when I first got into scrapbooking and stuff like that. I'm sure that has all changed now. Everybody's into this. It doesn't matter what your sex is. But anyways, as I said, that was just a minor little thing, and they've been great ever since then with all of that. Anyways, I digress. They don't sell sewing machines, but they do have, back in the good old days pre-COVID, they do run classes. Now, I've never taken a class with them, and to be honest, I don't think I will, because I will take my classes at Ultimate Sewing, because that's where my loyalties lie. They do have a good selection online of notions, and again, the prices on those are within the range of what everybody else charges. They do have a lot of patterns, especially bag patterns. So if you're into bag making, you might want to check them out online, because not only do they have bag patterns, but they sell a lot of the hardware online for making bags. The clasps, the hooks, all that kind of thing, zippers. So they do have a really good selection of hardware for bags. They have a good selection of Aurifil and Quilters Select threads as well. And they do sell kits. Their kits are pretty pricey. And their kits tend to lend themselves towards the more traditional type of quilting. I have bought a couple of their quilts in the kits in the past. They have been fine. There was one kit where they kind of, I don't know if it was me or them, but I found I was a little short on one fabric in the kit. It could have been my cutting, but anyways, I was able to solve that problem. But that only happened to me once, and it wasn't a major problem. So, so if you're into kits, they do have kits. What else can I say about them? Oh, they have a clearance section that has some very good prices on, remnants, end of the bolt kind of thing, old stock. Check that out, especially their Christmas fabrics and things like that. You can get some good deals there. Shipping, well, if you have over $200 in Canadian funds and you live in Canada, it's free shipping, but that's for Canada only. However, they do charge a flat rate. If it's under $200 in Canada, again, they charge $14 flat rate, which I don't think is unreasonable. Now, it is if you're going to order half a meter of fabric, but why would you do that? No. I mean, my way of looking at shipping on these things is I look at their shipping cost and I decide, is it worth paying that for what I'm putting an order in for? If I'm putting in a $150 order, $14 is not bad. Okay? And as I said, if you go over 200, it's free shipping. And that gets me every time, because when I see free shipping and I look at their limit for that, I usually buy over the limit. US and international, I think you need to email them to find out what that's going to cost you there. And I've already mentioned that, yes, they do have a physical store. I miss going to physical stores. Maybe this time next year, we'll be able to do that again. If not sooner. It'd be nice if it was sooner. But, we'll see. So that's called the Quilters Cupboard. There's a link to their online store in the show notes below. Okay, so what's that take us to? Well, pretty much the end of today's episode. Just some final thoughts. As I've already mentioned, So Chatty episode 3, we're featuring the, in So Chatty episode 3, it's already happened, it's already up. We featured the Janome Continental M7 machine. That video is a little bit disorganized. I had notes, I didn't refer to them, and I sort of jumped from one feature to another feature, so sorry about that. I will try to do a better job on future videos on So Chatty. And there'll be another episode, probably tail end of this week, of So Chatty as well. And on that one, I'll be talking about my Janome Skyline S7 sewing machine. And what else can I tell you? Oh yes, I will be on a virtual sewing retreat this coming weekend, Energize 3.0. This is being put together by Kim Jamison Hurst of the Chatterbox Quilts / The Quilters Way. It is a closed session. You need to be a member of the Quilters Way to be part of it, and I don't think she's taking new members right now, but you could check it out if you're interested. And you've heard me talk about Kim's The Quilters Way many times. I really enjoy that group. It's a paid membership, worth every penny. And this is one of the bonuses of being a member. Every so often, Kim does what she calls Energize, which is a weekend virtual retreat. We started on the Friday night with an official opening of the event and a cocktail party, virtual cocktail party, which is a great idea because not everybody joins in on it that are going to the retreat, but there's enough of us, and it sort of breaks the ice, especially amongst, people that we may never have met before because they're new members to the Quilters Way, whatever, but it's just fun. It's just a great way to start it off. And then come Saturday, we start in the morning and work until, 7, 8 o'clock at night. I'm not sure what the plans are this year. Kim has demos. She has prizes. It's great. And it runs over Saturday and into Sunday as well. So anyways, something I will be reporting on in a little bit more detail come next week's Idiot Quilter episode. But really, if you're looking for a very friendly group, you're looking for great tutorials, classes, basically, online, you're looking for a community of quilters who are nothing but supportive and helpful, you should really check out the Quilters Way. Just do a search, you'll find it. Okay, so I think that's it for me this week. I've got to get on to the binding of my quilt, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining me today. Have a good one. Bye-bye for now.